Now, whenever I'm traveling around or just talking to someone in conversation, I always get the question, which some of you may be thinking as well, what was it like growing up as Dave Ramsey's kid? And my answer to you would be that what I thought as a kid was very normal. I thought everything Dave and Sharon Ramsey did with us kids was normal. That's what every parent in America does, that's just normal. But now, being an adult, being out of the household, I look back at my childhood and I think, wow, that wasn't normal at all. It was actually kind of weird. There were some weird things that happened. Like my sister and I, we loved playing with Barbies. We were little girls. We loved Barbies. But we were never allowed to get a Barbie doll. We always had to get the off-brand Barbie, the Barbara doll. She usually had one leg, and it was rough. But being a teenager, that was definitely the hardest. Like in high school, whenever a hot guy asks to pick you up for a date, you were required to ask him if his car was paid for. Some awkward conversations there, yes. But when I was 15 years old, it's probably when I learned my biggest money lesson to date, I would say. And I was 15, and one afternoon my dad got a phone call that no dad wants to get about his daughter, his 15-year-old daughter at the time. And this man was informing my dad that I had bounced 3 checks. Yeah, being Dave Ramsey's kid and bouncing 3 checks. It's like your dad being a dentist, but your teeth are like rotting out of your face. And it's like, what? That doesn't make sense. Yep, bounced 3 checks. So Dad came home from work that day, remember it clear as day. Came home, and I remember he told me the call he got, and he didn't yell, he didn't scream, he wasn't really mad. He just said, okay, Rachel, you're going to call the bank first thing in the morning, and you're going to ask to speak to the executive bank branch manager. And you are to set up an appointment with him, and you are to go down to the bank in person and apologize to him for lying. Because you told him that you had money in his bank to spend, and you didn't, and that's a lie. You've lied. And at 15 years old, I was like, seriously? And he said, oh yes, I'm the parent, you're the child, you do what I say. And I was like, oh dear Lord, okay. So sure enough, next morning, called the bank, set up the appointment, went down to the bank, and I couldn't even drive. I was only 15, I just had my learner's permit, so my mom had to take me. And I remember her dropping me off. I remember going through the glass doors of the bank. And I remember when I walked in, I realized, it kind of hit me that this was the first time I had been in a bank by myself. Normally, my mom was with me or my dad, but no, it was just me. And I remember just going out to the first person I saw, and I said, are you the executive bank branch manager? And the lady said, no, honey, I'm the teller. No, his office is down the hall and to the right. I was like, okay. So I'm walking down to this old man's office at a bank. This is like going to the principal's office on steroids, right? I mean, it's so awkward. And I remember getting to his door, and I knocked on it, and he said, come in. And I walked in, and he said, are you Mrs. Ramsey for the 9 o'clock appointments, you child? And I said, yes, that's me. And he said, okay, well, come have a seat. He said, Ms. Ramsey, what can I do for you today? And I said, well, sir, I'm here to apologize to you for lying. He said, excuse me? And I handed him my overdraft, sheet that you get in the mail, and I handed it to him. And I said, well, sir, I told you that I had money in your bank to spend, and I didn't, and that's a lie, and I've lied, and I'm here to ask your forgiveness. And he looked at me, and he said, Miss Ramsey, did your father tell you to come down here and say this to me? And at that point, I just started crying. I said, yes, it's child abuse. This is the worst thing ever. It's so bad. And he kind of laughed, and, we kind of talked about it a little bit more, and he waived my overdraft fees. So, lesson to all of you out there, just go down to the bank and apologize.